And we're live. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It is Friday, February 25th, 2022. And this week we're talking about foldable iPhones, a 20-inch MacBook, which seems real giant, and more about that Apple car we've been hearing about for years, because this is the iMore Show. I am one of your hosts, Luke Filipovich, writer for iMore, and joined as always by the lovely Karen Freeman, who is an iMore contributor. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, not bad. I'm excited to dig into some of these juicy rumors we got this week. Steven, just so everyone knows, Steven would normally be here, but unfortunately he just couldn't make it today, but that's okay. We'll chug on without him and he'll be back before you know it. One interesting piece of news that I found that we'll start off the show with here is actually about Safari, interestingly enough, which has been, the the Mac OS browser for a long time. And it's apparently right now Safari is the world's second favorite browser. So Karen, can you guess which is the world's favorite browser according to StatCounter, which is where we're getting these numbers?
Well, I did read the article, so it's Chrome.
You don't have to tell them that.
But which is not surprising because just for example, the SteamYard, which is the program that we use to broadcast, does not work on Safari. So we all have to use Chrome no matter what kind of computer we're on. So yeah, not at all surprising. But I guess the surprising part is that Safari is even second.
Although that may not be for long.
Yeah.
So StatCounter was saying that currently the list, Safari is having 9.84% of the market behind Chrome's massive 65.38%.
Yeah.
So Chrome is
dominant.
in the lead by an insane amount. But its browsers in the third and fourth spot that are kind of worth looking at are Microsoft Edge, which is relatively newer and based on Chromium, and Mozilla Firefox, of course. And both of those have seen increases in numbers over the last years. So Safari's kind of holding on to that that little sliver of second place, but we don't know how long it's really gonna be. In fact, I used to be a Safari defender. I used to love it a lot. It used to be my main browser, mainly because we all know that Chrome has a bit of a RAM sucking problem. If you ever use Chrome and then open a bunch of tabs, especially if you have an older computer that maybe doesn't like run as well, or just you don't have a ton of RAM, you're going to notice slowdowns. And I hated that, especially as somebody who needs a lot of tabs open all the time when he's working. So I kind of switched away from Chrome and I did Safari for quite a long time. And then just last year, I actually switched over to Edge and I really, really like it. So I'm kind of
really,
yeah, I really, really like Microsoft Edge a lot. And it's because it's built on the same like foundation that Chrome is built on. So it's very similar to Chrome. But it doesn't have that memory hogging problem that Chrome seems to have.
Interesting.
And yeah, so I actually really like Microsoft Edge. It works for me. I can't say that I'm a browser snob or connoisseur. I kind of use what works for me and that's it. But Karen had mentioned that StreamYard, what we use, which StreamYard is just one example. There's lots of things that like don't work properly on Safari still, even after how many years it's been since Safari's been.
Yeah. Or at all. I mean, if you try to plug that URL into Safari, it will say Safari does not support this. So
yeah. So yeah, you need a Chromium browser to support StreamYard, which is what we use to broadcast to all you lovely folks. And yeah, luckily, Microsoft Edge, since it's built on Chromium, it works for me. So that's what I've been using. Karen, what do you use? Do you stick with Safari? Do you use Chrome? I guess you use Chrome for this, obviously.
I'm using Chrome at this moment. Yeah. But normally I just use Safari just because of sheer inertia and because of how well it works with my iPhone, my iPad, and all the just the Apple walled garden. It just makes things easier.
Yeah.
But I am not one to say that Safari is the best browser at all. It's just that's what came with my computer, so that's what I use.
Mhm. Somebody in our comment said that they're a web dev and that the Chrome dev tools are the best, period. So I'm not a web dev, so I'll take your word for it. But
Yeah.
that's the other side too, right? It's like is that's always the other side of the coin when it comes to software. Is it's not only the people using it, but it's the people who are developing for it. That you have to kind of make both sides happy in order to have a really successful software product.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
And then
Chrome's just
yeah,
been around for so long and has kind of like, it just really has amassed so much love, especially when, before Microsoft Edge came out and that was the main default Windows browser, they still had like an Internet Explorer and that was never really that good. Edge kind of came in and sort of fixed a lot of problems that system had. So it's in third spot right now. And I could definitely see, especially since, the amount of computers Microsoft sells as well in, business sectors and all sorts of different places, consumers as well. I feel like Microsoft Edge kind of working its way up could eventually overtake Apple and that, but it seems like Chrome's uncatchable. Like I don't think Chrome will
yeah.
ever
Well,
come down.
also remember Chromebooks
Yeah,
are massively popular in
totally.
schools.
Mhm.
When my kids were in school, they all had school issued Chromebooks. And I think that's pretty common across the US, at least. I'm not sure about other countries. So, no one's ever going to catch Chrome.
Yeah. Yeah, unless something
It's just,
drastically happens to it and they make it really bad somehow, but I don't see that happening. So,
yeah, yeah. It's the race to distant second
yeah, a race
between
to
the other
distant
three.
second. I mean, hey, silver medal at the Olympics is never something to scoff at, that's for sure.
Well, right.
So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit, just because like we, working in the covering this industry and stuff, we often hear gripes about Safari and people always talk about kind of what browser they use. So I thought it was interesting to actually, like, it is technically second. I mean, a very distant second, as we mentioned, but it is technically second right now,
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't have guessed, to be honest. I would have thought like Edge or Firefox would have beaten it
Yeah.
so far. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Lots of people in the
Yeah.
comments. Lots of people in the
Uh,
comments talking now about what they like. Some people say Firefox. People say Chrome. Someone didn't even know Edge was possible on Mac. It is. It is
yeah.
MX. It is.
Yeah. And Sukotronic said in the comments that in Spain, Chromebooks are also all over the schools.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's another piece of the puzzle, right? So,
yeah.
and if you're a kid and you've been using Chromebooks in your life and you've been using Chrome your life, when you graduate to being an adult and you're going to buy your own computer, maybe it's not going to be a Chromebook, maybe you need something more, but you're probably going to stick with more of the tech you're used to.
Well, I have to say my youngest went to art school,
Mhm.
and so they use a Wacom tablet as their primary computer for
Right.
artwork, but they still need like a computer for
Mhm.
email and just random other things. And I said, do you want me to buy you a MacBook? And they're like, no, 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 I just want another Chromebook. So
Yeah.
that's their computer of choice. But they don't want to spend the money on a nice, fancy laptop when it's not, it's not, they're not doing anything really important on it.
Yeah. Totally. So,
So
yeah, interesting stuff. I'm surprised Safari's second. We'll see how long that holds up. Maybe next year we'll be talking about how Safari slipped. So should be interesting.
yeah.
Another piece of news that kind of came out this week was that you may have been, if you've been hearing about AirTags lately, you may have been hearing a lot of stories, or some stories that have been amplified about the AirTag kind of stalking issue. And there's actually a
Yeah.
university study that's looking into kind of how bad this problem is. So a German university, um, a researcher and a PhD student at German's Technical University of Darmstadt's Secure Mobile Networking Lab, I'm hoping I'm getting that right, is one of the people behind AirGuard, which is an Android app that allows people to locate misused AirTag trackers. So they're kind of taking a sort of an outside approach from everything that Apple's doing. Because from my opinion, I think Apple's doing a lot to sort of, as much as it can to sort of stem, misuse and abuse of their AirTags.
Well, the problem is that, okay, in some ways, I think Apple's getting unfairly slammed on, and in some ways, they're not getting slammed on enough. So I think the reason that we keep hearing about AirTag stalking is because AirTags work better than the other trackers. That's
Yeah.
why, stalkers are using them or whatever. So
Mhm.
in that sense, Apple did too good of a job making the AirTag. But the problem is that that Apple's own AirTag locating Android app doesn't run in the background. So then what's the point of
Yeah.
it? Like, how is it going to alert you if somebody's stuck an AirTag on you? If it's not running in the background, that means you have to go check. Like, who's going to go check, like, every time they get on a train or every time they leave a store, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
definitely not nearly as intuitive as is, Find My app within iOS or Mac is, and that is a huge that is a blind spot for sure. And
yeah,
I agree with you, Karen. I think like Apple has gotten some unnecessary flack because this isn't really an Apple problem. Trackers have been around for quite a while. It's
right,
just
right,
Apple's the biggest company and most popular company to get into the market, and therefore there's a lot of good that comes with that, and there's a lot of bad. And unfortunately,
right,
uh, the bad stuff can be pretty horrible. Like, nobody needs to be stalked. That's horrible. I don't understand why people would even do it, especially
right.
even in some ways, even using an AirTag to do it in the first place is really stupid, for lack of a better word, because
Yeah,
there's so many features in them that like will get you caught. And Apple, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, but Apple's even said that they've worked with officials in situations to track down people's Apple IDs and credentials to help them out in cases, and they've turned that stuff over to the law. So it's not like they're not gonna, it's not like you can get away with it.
yeah.
In some ways it feels weird that people are even doing it, but like at the same time, unfortunately, just bad people exist in the world.
Right, right. Well, I
And
hope I hope this German study and this app, this AirGuard app the Android app that they've come up with, I hope that mitigates the issue and puts into it.
yeah, especially like you mentioned for Android users, like, we've heard quite a few stories about, iPhone users, getting the notification that a misplaced or an unknown AirTag is following them around. And that's scary enough, but like, if you're on Android and you don't have a good way of, your phone scanning for that, tracker all the time, uh, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to see, like, how much more are we going to find? Like, is there even more instances that we aren't catching of, stalking issues or what have
Right.
you, stealing property, which has also been used, to locate cars and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
uh, it's interesting to see like how many of that hasn't been caught because there's an Android app out there that isn't, really protecting people that well,
Right.
especially since Android, it's such a big share of the market as well. Like, there's Android phones everywhere, right? So it's as much as we talk about the Find My network being super expansive, and it is, like 1 billion iPhones in the world. It's there's easily just as many of Androids out there that are running around as well. And so I agree, Karen. I hope that this new app kind of digs more into the problem, and hopefully, it can find some solutions and be a bit better than what Apple's offering. Obviously, I would like if Apple kind of, upped their ante a little bit when it comes to protecting, people with Android phones, from, their own technology. Um,
Yeah. I feel like it's a situation of with great power comes great responsibility.
yeah.
The fact that iPhones are so popular make the AirTag so much more effective, whereas the other brands, because there aren't as many, it's a little bit harder to track your Tile or your Chipolo without um, with precision, because they're
Mhm.
you have to have a user within that ecosystem nearby in order to track where your tracker is. So Apple needs to, since Apple hasn't come up with a truly effective Android app, I'm glad that other companies are doing that.
Yeah. And Craig makes a good point in the comments. And this is part of the reason why, Apple's maybe getting a little bit of unfair heat because of the whole general problem. But like, there's GPS trackers out there you can get that don't alert phones, or don't, like they're
Yeah.
they're not the same as an AirTag, and they're definitely not, they're not meant for losing your items. They're meant for different things. But like, there's other things that people can get, and that there's other things that people obviously probably use to unfortunately do these horrible, nefarious
Right. I
things.
know, but an AirTag is $20 and it's the size of a quarter.
Yeah.
It makes it so easy.
Yeah, it's just like it's Apple's in a bit of a hard place with it, but they did come out with some newer improved features not that long ago, and I think that's going to go a long way once those are fully implemented, to sort of even help crack down on this a little more. I think them coming out and saying like, look, if you're doing this, we're gonna rat you out to the authorities. Like, we're not here to protect abusers. Like,
Right.
so they're kind of doing, they're doing a lot, which is good, and they do deserve some kudos. But their Android app is lacking for sure, and
Right.
and that's what this German study is really sort of getting to the problem. And so I'm hoping I'm hoping that as that study goes on, I'm hoping that they find that it isn't as big of an issue as we hear, because that's the other side of the coin too, is that we hear a lot about this because it amplifies sort of in our circles, and it's like, how many instances are there out there, and we don't really know the full scope. So hopefully this kind of helps get to the bottom of the problem.
Okay.
Let's quickly touch on what Gurman said recently, which that new Macs are coming, which he's kind of said already. But we are expecting something during the March event. We're thinking it's going to be the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which apparently will have the M2. But once again, no one really knows until Apple does their thing and announces it on stage. But there's more Macs coming throughout the year. In fact, there's at least, Gurman says that there's at least one new Mac coming next month, which we would assume would be during the March event we keep hearing about. But more Macs are going to be announced in May or in June. New MacBook Pro, a Mac Mini, and a new iMac are getting updates, and are getting more updates expected before the end of 2022. So,
and the MacBook Air too. I'm not sure if you said that.
Yeah, and the MacBook Air. So we're expecting like a full by the end of this year, there's going to be a new every type of Mac you can pretty much think of. Except for like maybe the Mac Pro. There hasn't been too much rumors about that, but who knows at this point. You think they're going to want to M1 a Mac Pro at some point. So it's interesting. Macs they yearly refreshes are not uncommon for a lot of Apple products. But to get all of them, like pretty much their entire line, get a big refresh in one full calendar year, is they've gotten close, but I can't remember I'm sure there are other years, but I can't remember off the top of my head, at least the last few years where that's happened. However,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, however, with M1 and now that they're using their own architecture, it might be easier for them to do this from going forward, right? Because it's all in-house now. They don't need to.
Yeah, what's like one fewer middleman.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't need to go to Intel and figure out what chips they're making and stuff like that. They know what they're doing. They're doing their own stuff. Obviously, they still have to source all the materials, and that can, there can be issues with that. But overall, like the design and the development of these processes are all in-house now. So like it's possible that this could be kind of a new thing going forward, where like everything gets a refresh like within 1 year, and there's none of this like waiting some products have waited, 18 to months to maybe 24 months before they see an update. Maybe they're sort of getting rid of that. Maybe they're looking to shorten their cycles a little bit, which would be interesting, because it's not like when, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, or a Mac, it's not like within a year it's garbage.
Right,
It's not
right.
like if you buy it and then you need a new one next year. But
Yeah,
that rolling cycle really helps with people who are upgrading, who, they might not upgrade this year and they wait till next year and then they're like, okay, now we'll upgrade. There's lots of people like that. There is also just tech nerds like us and enthusiasts who just need everything because it's what they need, which is great. So I'm interested to see, like, if this will be a new kind of a new process going forward, and a
yeah.
new method that they
Well,
launch for products.
I think the more interesting rumor is the one for like 2025 or further out, that giant folding screen,
Hmm.
the 20-inch folding MacBook that Apple is supposedly pondering. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Before we get into that, Karen, why don't we take just a quick second and you can tell us about a friend of ours?
Oh, yes. Let's do that. Let's talk about, have you ever been hit with a technical snafu shopping online? Has filling out payment fields given you a headache? Has a mobile banking app even been down when you wanted to use it? Capital One believes everyone deserves better banking. This means easier access to their money and more security. That's why Capital One is investing in machine learning. Machine learning allows Capital One to do things like fight fraud with random forests. Models quickly detect suspicious activity and make it faster to alert federal investigators. Identify how mobile app outages happen with causal models. Keeping our mobile app up and running doesn't happen by accident. Anomaly detection and incident response help determine why app outages happen so engineers can quickly remedy them. Speed up online shopping with machine learning at the edge. Make shopping with virtual card numbers smoother and more secure. The technology is based on logistic regression models and running inference in the browser. It identifies payment fields, which helps make using virtual card numbers easier and faster. The potential of machine learning is so big. See how Capital One is using machine learning to create the future of banking. Search machine learning at Capital One. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Capital One. Yeah, let's dive into what Karen was saying right before we talked about our friends at Capital One, which was there is a rumor about Apple is reportedly pondering a massive 20-inch folding MacBook, which, even reading that headline, makes my head spin a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I first read the headline, I'm like, "What's the big deal?" But then I realized it's not just the MacBook that's folding; it's the actual screen that's folding. So you unfold it into a massive 20-inch screen, which then you can use as a second screen, or you can just use it as a MacBook. Which it's hard to even get the mind around it.
Yeah, especially since, like, I mean, obviously foldable screens on phones and things have been here for a while, and we know Apple is working on one, but we know it's a few years off yet. And so to hear that this is something that's in the books, that's being, like, at least developed in some way, it could be at very early stages, assuming at this point, but
Yeah,
um, like, that's, you must think that at least gives us a clue that, like, if this turns out to be true, that, like, Apple must believe in this technology, and they must believe that they can make it, they can make it work and make it elegant, as they like to do. Um,
yeah,
and that's crazy to me. Like, it's crazy to think that they're even thinking about this right now. Like,
yeah.
I don't
A
know if
Mac,
there's, I don't know
a
if I,
MacBook Pro that expands to become an iMac. I mean, it's the best of both worlds.
yeah, it also makes you wonder, like, portability wise, though. What's that? What is that going to look like? Because I remember, back in the day when there was a 17-inch MacBook Pro, if you remember those ones. I always thought like I never had one personally, but one of my good friends had one through college and stuff, and he held on to it for a while, and he kept upgrading. Like he upgraded to an SSD over the regular like hard drive because he was like trying to get as much life as he could out of it, because they stopped selling the 17-inch MacBook, and he was like obsessed with like the big screen and everything. And I was always like, I understand, I love big screens, but in something I want to carry around, I've always thought that like there's got to be a limit to what's
Yeah,
useful.
but it folds. So it's 20 inches when it's fully expanded, but then it folds into, I mean, it would probably only be, I mean, it's not like exactly 10, but it would be, it probably wouldn't be any bigger than the 13-inch MacBook is now.
Yeah, which like that's the exciting thing, right? Like when I first thought like, oh, a 20-inch MacBook seems kind of huge, like that seems like a little unwieldy, and then I was like, oh, well, the folding screen, like what does that look like? How, and like, how light is it? How portable is it? Because like that's always a consideration for a lot of people when they're buying a laptop,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it would probably be fairly thick, but I mean, I think it
Yeah.
would be like the size of two 10-inch MacBook. Right? I mean, because if it opens up to 20, I mean, I'm oversimplifying the math a little bit, but I mean, it seems like it would be pretty small, just maybe substantially thicker. But then I assume it wouldn't have a keyboard on it, right? You would just type on the screen itself if you were using it as a MacBook. And then if you wanted to expand it to use it as an iMac, then you would use a separate keyboard.
Yeah. Well, according to the rumor, it says that this size could create a new category for Apple, which would result in a true dual use product, a notebook with a full size keyboard when folded, and for use as a monitor when not folded, with an external keyboard. So that's
So
what's the interesting part is, it's like, it's kind of like you said, it's a bit of a, like you can use it as like a laptop with the screen kind of folded up, or you can like unfold it and then you use it as more of a monitor situation than an actual laptop, which
right.
is,
When it says a notebook with a full size keyboard, I assume that's an on screen keyboard, like with an iPad or an iPhone.
yeah, maybe, which would
Right?
you
Because
kind of like,
otherwise it would be in the way when you were trying to use it as an iMac, right?
yeah, unless like I'm, we're just grasping or guessing and throwing
Sure.
ideas out into the wind at the moment, but like, it kind of just the way they made it seem, what my mind was thinking originally was like, so however you fold it up and you have it like in a normal kind of laptop orientation, and maybe it does have a physical keyboard, and then to flip it open, if we're saying like this or whatever, to flip it open and put it, maybe you have to like use the keyboard part as a stand, where it like flips
Oh,
back,
that might be.
and then maybe it's kind of a stand to support it. That was where my mind went originally, but like who
We
knows?
don't know.
Yeah,
That's an interesting idea because
yeah,
I personally touch type. I took typing classes when I was a
right.
kid, and so I need the tactile keyboard
Mhm.
in order to type quickly. But I mean, however they designed this, count me intrigued, color me intrigued. I'm all for it. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'd love to see how I'll work it out.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's funny because we talk about foldable phones and from Samsung coming out and from Motorola, and we know Apple's working on one, and I've always thought about how, oh, foldable phones are probably going to be a much bigger thing going into the future, and like maybe we'll get to a point, it'll probably be years away yet, but maybe we'll get to a point where foldable phones are the only phones that they'll sell, because right now like Samsung has foldable phones it sells, but it also sells its regular sort of flat flagship brick phone. um and I'm curious if like I never even thought, it never even really entered my mind about folding MacBook screens. Like
Yeah, wow.
I just was like, oh, that's got to be so far off that it wasn't even in my mind. But it's cool, like that this report that we're seeing, that like if Apple is thinking about this, like they must really believe in this technology if they're even considering it.
Yeah,
Because
I hope it's true because this is the kind of thing that I think that this is one of the reasons I love Apple. It's not because they fill a need that I had. It's because they come up with a whole different category, a whole different way of doing things that I never would have thought of.
yeah, And it'll be interesting to see like if and when this does, if this is a thing and does come out, where the report says it wouldn't be at least till 2025, but probably more likely 2026 or 2027. So we're talking
Yeah.
like quite a few years yet. But it would be interesting if they ended up being the first to sort of this product category. Because we know that we don't see that a ton with Apple, right? They often like to sort of sit back and wait for the technology to sort of improve a bit, and then they kind of make their
Right.
own tweaks and kind of like perfect the model, right? But it would be kind of interesting if like, because I'm sure that there are probably other companies working on things similar or different, bigger applications of folding screens or stuff. But I'm interested to see like it would be cool. This would be cool if this was something that like Apple beat the rest of the market to, like this,
Right.
like
Right.
a foldable MacBook that can be used as a laptop or used as a crazy big 20-inch monitor when you're at home or whatever. Like that's a really interesting product. And especially if it has, if it has the internals that can support it so that it is actually a powerful machine when you're using it as a laptop, like that's going to be, I feel like, it'll definitely be expensive and it won't be a product for everyone, but I feel like the people who will
Yeah.
get it will be very, very happy with it if Apple kind of pulls this off. So it's probably the most it's so far away, but it's probably like the headline that makes me most excited about the future of this industry in general. Just even the
Agreed.
tech, I kind of forgot about like how the folding phones is kind of just the beginning of folding
Right.
technology. And I didn't even think about that until I kind of read this headline in this article that like it, it's insane what we could, maybe in 10 years from now, like maybe all of our computers will fold. Maybe our TVs will fold up. I don't know. I don't know why you would need a folding TV, but maybe you'll have one. Maybe you can
Who
carry it
knows?
around like a little briefcase and then set it up wherever you go. But yeah, it's cool to think that Apple is like even kind of like pondering this and to just think about what the possibilities could be. I'm gonna love, like, it'll be years yet, but like if we get like, even I'm sure there'll be like super, they might even be super sketchy rumors when we do get them in years, but I'll be interested to see like, renderings that people might come up with of how it might look based on some specs here and there or something. Like just it's so far away and yet I'm already craving more information, even though I know there pretty much probably is nothing. But yeah, it really, really like intrigues my mind with like all the possibilities of what it could look like and what it could do. Um, so it's really cool. And staying on the foldable front, um, don't expect your iPhone to fold until about 2025, we're hearing. Which I have to admit, we knew that the foldable iPhone was, we knew that it like wasn't going to come this year. We kind of already had figured that out through various rumors and sources and whatnot. But to hear 2025, I'm actually a little surprised. It seems later than I anticipated, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it seems weird that 2025 is the year we're hearing for both the folding iPhone and the folding MacBook. I mean, it seems like the folding iPhone should be sooner, right? Because that folding phones have been around already for years. So I'm not sure what the holdup is. I'm anxious to get my hands on that folding iPhone, but who knows? Apple isn't going to release something until they think it's really right. So
Yeah, it's like we were kind of expecting it about as early as maybe next year. 2023 was kind of
yeah.
what had been thrown around before, but this new report by analyst Ross Young is suggesting now it's going to be 2025 at the very earliest. And yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I mean, I understand, and we've said this before, that Apple likes to, make sure that when they come out of a product, it's about as elegant and Apple as it can be. And I as someone who didn't want to jump on the folding, especially like if I remember when the Samsung Fold first came out, I was very much like, this doesn't look like, this very much looks like a prototype product, and there was lots of issues with it, and there was recalls, and then they had to delay the launch and all sorts of things. But now like the Samsung folding phones look pretty good. Like I
Yeah.
like I like almost I almost kind of want a Z Flip 3 honestly. I kind of do, just because for the novelty, and it looks like it by all measures, it would be a great phone for what I use my phone for every day. I'd be able to do everything I need to do on it. And it looks pretty good now. Like I know it's not perfect in terms of people who are still looking for that absolutely creaseless screen. That's not quite there yet. But like in terms of the hinges that they use, and the technology, and the screen and the pixels, and everything seems to be kind of running at full speed. So it's interesting. I definitely expected, I never expect Apple, as we mentioned earlier, I never expect Apple to necessarily be first to a category product, because they like to perfect things and they like to take their time. But it seems crazy that we have good foldables now. We have like good, solid foldable phones now. And it's interesting that it's going to be like, we're talking like 3 more years before iPhone gets into the game, which seems kind of silly a little bit. It seems a little long. Like it seems like
I agree.
It seems like there's like Apple's always been pretty good at finding that balance. Like they're maybe not first to market with a new product or something like that, but they usually still kind of come out when they're hot and new, and sort of like not just, still sort of in that novelty phase. And then typically when Apple launches something, it kind of launches a novelty into more of a mainstream sort of thing, just because they're so big and so well known. And I kind of feel like by 2025, there might be a lot more foldables that the iPhone is going to have to compete with. Now, obviously,
right,
an iPhone still is an iPhone, and no other phone will be an iPhone. But if you're somebody who has been wanting a foldable so bad, and you move over to Samsung, and then you have Samsung foldables for the next 3 years, the iPhone's going to have to work so much harder for you to come back now, right? Because if you're already if you made the painstaking choice to sort of like move over, and that's what you decided to do because you really wanted the flip or the fold, and Apple's going to have to try like 3 times as hard to get you back, right? To get you back to go through that change, because the change can be a bit annoying. Let's face it. The change, if you're switching from Android or you're switching to iPhone or whatever, the change can be certainly a bit annoying. So I want Apple to take their time, because I want them to. It's like I want the best of both worlds. I want the iPhone to be like the best foldable phone we've seen when it finally launches, but I kind of want it now.
I agree. If it came out this year, it's highly likely I would be purchasing it.
Yeah, and 2025 seems so far away.
It does.
I mean, we all know how slow the last few years of our lives seem to have gone. So we'll have to see how the next 3 years go. But yeah, it's just interesting to me, because I don't know. I don't know what Apple's thinking. I wonder if it really is just trying to make the absolute apex, no compromises that you can think of kind of foldable phone, and that's just going to take time. Or I don't know, maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe they're not as. Maybe they have some research, or they're just not as confident that a foldable iPhone is going to really, increase their sales a lot. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. It could be a combination of many things.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear that we're going to be waiting a while to get that, especially when for a long time now, for almost like most of last year, we had been hearing 2023 from a lot of like pretty reliable sources. Of course, once again, nothing is for certain until Apple does it. So maybe they will launch it next year and we're all wrong about this. Who knows? But yeah, I hope it's good. I'm excited for it when it comes out. I'll be interested to see Apple's take, and I'll be interested to see, how iOS handles it too. Like it'll be an interesting process. I think it'll be a very interesting Apple event for sure when they finally launch their foldable phone, I think.
Yeah, and I do think it's going to have to be announced well in advance of when it's actually released, because developers are going to need to completely rework all of their apps.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Right. That's the other point to this. And that was something that the previous foldable phones, like and from Galaxy and or from Samsung, that they had trouble with that too. Was just the actual usability standpoint from a developer, it just takes time for your apps to be updated to use a new form factor, right? To even remember, even when like all screens started going like, more bezel-less, like less bezels and more full screens.
Right. Even just a slight change in proportion makes for a lot of rejiggering. But imagine, when you're talking a folding phone, the app is going to have to be completely redesigned from the ground up.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. You think that this might be something where like they might announce it. Maybe they'll announce it at like a WWDC and they'll talk about it there and give, but maybe it won't actually come out and they won't fully announce all the features and everything until the Apple, their iPhone event typically is in September. So it'll be interesting to see, but I agree. You think if they want it to be, if they want it to be supported and have people give people the opportunity to have all their apps that they love on their iPhones day one, that there's going to need to be some lag time between when it's announced and when it comes out. So
yeah, for sure. At least that long.
Yeah, at least that long. I'm going to take a second and tell you all about something that I actually use every day. So if you spend a lot of time on the internet like I do, having a good virtual private network or a VPN is a must, because not only does it protect your privacy, it also lets you get around those, tricksy little geo locking mechanisms that Netflix and other things have, so that you can't watch certain content in certain countries. And I honestly use NordVPN every day, and I've never looked back since I started my subscription about 2-3 years ago now. They have servers in 59 different countries that you can easily click and pick and choose your own server that you want from any country you want, meaning you can access pretty much any content you want in the world. If something seems to be blocked or doesn't seem to be where you are, there's easy ways around it. And on top of that, NordVPN is actually really fast. Sometimes VPNs can have the issue where, since they're trying to reroute your traffic through a different IP address and through a different server, it can slow down your internet connection just by the way that the servers communicate. I've never had that problem with NordVPN. My internet is always blazing fast. I always get the upload and download speed that I'm paying for my provider. It's been awesome. And one thing I absolutely love about NordVPN is that you can have it up on up to 6 devices, and they have apps for everything. I have it on my Mac. I have it on my iPhone. I have it on my iPad. I literally have it everywhere that I access the internet, and it works so well. The iPad app or the iPhone app specifically is amazing, and it can work right into iOS so that you don't even have to think about it. You can just pick your server and you'll always have your VPN on. It's really great for privacy because it hides your IP address and other details. So if people are trying to figure out who you are, it makes it a lot harder. Whenever you're on a public internet, it's usually a good idea to have a VPN, just for that extra layer of protection to keep your browsing secure. And NordVPN doesn't cost that much. For about a coffee a day, you can get NordVPN for a few years, and it kind of eventually pays for itself. Plus, it's completely risk-free because of Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. You can try it, you can buy it, you can try it out. You don't like it in that first month, you don't want it, they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. You don't have to say why, you don't have to say how, you don't have to tell them anything. You can just get your money back, which is great. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/iMore or use the code iMore to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month for free. And they're even going to throw in a bonus gift for our viewers. So check that out. That's nordvpn.com/iMore, and start protecting yourself when you browse the internet.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring us. I've wanted to talk to you for a while, or about you for a while, just because I actually use it every day. It is a very good VPN. I'm not just saying that. Quick little iPhone 14 rumor. Apparently, the iPhone 14 Pro design is reportedly now set in stone. Which makes sense, especially since
I would assume so by now.
Especially since it's supposed to be, apparently it should be launching this September. But it has recently entered the trial production operation, and it is reported that the red supply chain indicator factory Luxshare has not yet obtained the new product trial production import mass production service and will miss the OEM with the best sales. I don't really know what that meant. I'm going to reread that for a quick second.
Yeah, but this is the very unsurprising rumor. We have all these surprising rumors about foldables, and the 14 Pro is the iPhone 14 Pro is set in stone. The design is set in stone. Well, yeah, I expect we're going to have it in our hands in 6 months. It should be designed by now.
Yeah, the big part of this is not only is it set in stone, but that it's now thought that Apple has asked to begin trial production, which, is kind of like the last sort of step. It's where they work out, like any kinks with the design or the actual physical copies of the of a phone. So this is where, coming in the next few months and stuff, this is where we might get those leaks or those rumors about, like, when you see those dummy phones that maybe go to like different case manufacturers or accessory manufacturers, or that kind of end up in the wild and things like that. We might start seeing a lot more about what the iPhone 14 might actually look like. Of course, once again, we'll never know until Apple announces it fully, but this is sort of like that last thing that needs to happen before any of those other sort of rumors and leaks that we've seen in the past get to happen. And since there's been lots of rumors about what the iPhone 14 and the 14 Pro's design might be, everything from like a camera module in the back that's completely flush with the phone, to no notch, to a smaller notch, to a hole punch, to a pill, all sorts of different kind of rumors and leaks have already kind of been out there. So it'll be interesting to see like what more comes of this, and as these as like trial production begins and things, we'll see how we might get some more glimpses depending on who gets a hold of them or where they end up. But yeah, this is kind of like, it's the obvious next step in the iPhone 14 production. Yeah. So I'm excited for the iPhone 14 just because I was really impressed with the iPhone 13. I have an iPhone 13 Pro, and like every day I'm still like enamored with how much battery life I have at the end of the day. Like it's just it just like, I feel like it's the first like iPhone in a while to like truly wow me with something. Like, it seems silly, but something as simple as the battery life is just like wowed me completely, because like I mean, granted, I upgraded from like a relatively older phone. I was like on an iPhone 8 at this point, but like I don't remember getting a brand new iPhone and being so impressed with the battery life before. So I'm interested to see if like can the iPhone 14 push that even more, with software or maybe a slightly bigger battery, especially if they do end up making it a bit thicker because they want those flush cameras. If that is a design rumor that holds true, I'm interested to just see how much more they can kind of push it, just because it's to have it like this iPhone will last me, if on an average, like it'll last me about 2 days without charging it, roughly. It depends on how much I use it. Like but it like it can fluctuate, but like on average, I'm getting at least a day and a half on a full charge, at least. And then like, so it's been awesome. Like I love not having to plug in as much. And it's just such a great thing. And I think like it sounds so silly because it's like, well, who cares how long your battery lasts? It's like, no, everyone cares how long their battery lasts because
it's the thing, because if your phone has 1,000 fantastic features, if it's dead, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And just like it's also so useful when you're traveling around. If you can't reliably, when you're at home and you can charge whenever you want, that's a different situation than if you're running around or if you're traveling and you can't always charge when you need to. It's good to have a battery that kind of holds true and holds its battery percentage as much as possible, which is great.
I have to tell you, I could never make a day and a half on a single charge. And I have the iPhone 13 Pro, and there's
interesting.
no way it's lasting that. I'm a heavy user.
Fair. Yeah.
And
I mean,
I am traveling right now, and I find myself charging midday just to make sure I make it all the way through the day. I mean, I'm not like down to, under 20% or anything, but I'm like well below 50% by midday. So I'm usually charging again at some point.
Yeah, and I fluctuate for sure. Like there's days where like I'm very very heavily on it, doing whatever, and it'll, I don't think I've ever gotten less than like a good full like day's worth out of it. Like not 24 hours, but I mean like a day,
Yeah.
a day of use kind of situation. I don't think I've ever had a panic situation. Um, and even still, one thing that I find funny is like when it hits, I remember like using my old phone. Once it hit that, like once you got that 20% notification, I was like, oh, I have to plug it in because like this is going to die real fast
Oh,
now.
for sure. That's
Right.
that's panic mode. No, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I get down that low, but
Yeah.
for me, like if I'm going to be out and about, I
Mhm.
don't want to be even under like 40% because what happens if um I something I don't know. I get very nervous when I get below 40%. So I usually try to start looking for a charger at that point.
That's fair. But like what I was about to say is that like when I get that 20% notification on my 13 Pro, like I'll usually charge if I'm around a charger, but like it still lasts for quite a while after you get that. It doesn't seem to like it, like I'm so used to once I get that notification, my older phones would seem to die even faster.
Yeah.
Like they could go from 20% to 0% sometimes in like, an hour or maybe two. Whereas like I can, out of that 20% of the iPhone 13, I can like get quite a few hours if I'm a little more careful with the way I'm using it. Usually I'll obviously plug in once I get that notification, but like it's it's interesting to me just how good the battery life and how it's kind of changed a bit the way I use my phone. I actually don't have as much battery anxiety as I used to. And I don't feel the need to always plug it in until I kind of get those notifications. So yeah, it's good, and I'm excited to see if the iPhone 14 can kind of like push that even a little more because it's great. And I mean, like, I would love a phone like if I could get a phone that just like solidly lasted for like couple days, like reliably a couple days all the time, like that would be a big consideration for me getting that phone, whatever phone that was.
Yeah.
If it had everything I needed on it and it like just let me get a few days of solid battery use out of it, that would be awesome. That would be like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I think phones have gotten to the point where longer battery life is one of the few things that people are really going to care about. I mean, how much
True.
the screens on these iPhones are like so beyond amazing.
Yeah.
Like, how much better can they get? Like it used to be a thing. Like, we've got more pixels and OLED and LED. Now all people care about is the battery, like getting that battery better. I feel like.
Yeah. It's I agree. Like phones are all, especially all the
I mean,
uh
the
all the
cameras have
flagships.
gotten,
Yeah.
yeah.
All the
The
flagships
cameras
have.
have gotten so amazing. There's always room for a better camera, don't get me wrong, but I
Yeah.
think battery life is just a big pain point for people.
Yeah, totally. So let's finish up the show. We have a few more minutes here, but let's talk about we haven't talked about the Apple Car in a while. The
Yeah,
long rumored, long awaited, often heard about Apple Car um, is going to be reportedly working with a South Korean firm to add autopilot tech to the Apple Car.
yeah,
So we are talking about a Tesla sort of competitor, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. Um, which
makes
is
sense.
yeah, it makes sense, but we've kind of been it's sort of been bouncing around. Like Apple's made some. If you look at the hires it's made for its kind of Apple Car project and several of the announcements from like partnering with different firms or different things, it's kind of been hard to sort of gauge exactly where they're going. And I still don't know that we know a ton more, but like knowing that they are indeed apparently looking for an autopilot feature or some sort of autonomous features to be included in the Apple Car, which makes sense. But I guess is cool to know that they kind of have someone on board that they're looking to really dive into this.
Yeah.
Um,
I just hope it doesn't look like the pictures that we're seeing. I know those are
Yeah,
just mock-ups, but
yeah, those are just
I
interesting mock-ups. This one that
yeah.
from Vanarama, it definitely it definitely looks a little weird. It looks
Yeah, that's just a big no. It looks like a version of the future that would have been thought up in the 1970s,
yeah,
if that makes any sense.
it looks like a car you would see in the background of the Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner movie. Like
Yeah,
it kind of looks like that 80s futuristic future
right,
that we saw in so many sci-fi movies. Um
right, right. I
it
think
looks
Apple
and
can do better, but
I know we're harping on this. If people, you should go to iMore and check this out if you're hearing us talk about this, because like there's also some ridiculous things like the glowing Apple logos in the middle of the
yeah.
hubcaps, which
Yeah.
like is seems a little odd. I mean, I don't know if that's the way that Apple would go.
Yeah,
Um,
I highly doubt it. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
no.
but I do think that that self-driving is the way of the future. I mean, I think that's where all cars are going, and I
Mhm.
think that this is something Apple, of course, has to be researching.
Yeah. It'll be interesting though, because like as we've seen from there's tons of clips that you can find of these on Twitter, on the internet, on anywhere. Just type in Tesla autopilot and you'll find them. But like, Tesla's been rolling out or doing its beta launch of its auto, and it has a lot of problems. It certainly has a
Yeah,
lot of problems. And
I've
it
actually,
makes me feel like it's not safe at all right now is what it makes me feel like.
well, I've actually ridden in a self-driving Tesla.
Oh, okay.
That a friend of mine has, and it was like I spent the first 10 minutes like screaming because I was so terrified.
Right.
I mean, it is wild, but then you kind of get used to it, and you're changing lanes, and nobody's doing anything. It's just the car doing it all by itself, and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing now. It's wild. But I mean, I do think that's the way that we're going. I mean, the question is never, is a self-driving vehicle 100% perfect all the time? The question is it better than a person driving? Because
Yeah.
right now people don't drive that
Right. There's
great.
lots of bad drivers out there for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously the technology is very far off from being like a complete thing where you can just press a button and not have to worry about it. Um, and on top of the technology, the interesting part that like Tesla is sort of battling with a little bit right now is just like the legalities and the legal situation of it as well. Just like,
Mhm.
you know, who's a it'll be interesting when we're in a fully autonomous world, uh and that technology has been quote unquote perfected. Like how does that affect like insurance rates, and how does that affect
Right.
like the legalities of like who's at fault in an accident if two
For
cars
sure.
that are driving themselves collide into each
Right.
other,
Right,
like
and what are the rules? Like, are you
yeah,
allowed to, like, if you're in a self-driving vehicle, like, can you just sleep behind the wheel?
yeah,
Can you drive drunk? Because, you're not the one driving it, you're just sitting there. So, what is your responsibility? And there's a lot that needs to be ironed out besides just the technology.
yeah. And the thing is, the technology always like legislation and bureaucracy always moves a little slower than technology does.
A lot slower
I
because,
was trying to be
because
nice, Karen. I was trying to be
yeah,
nice.
I mean, because a lot of time the bureaucrats are not the people that are on the cutting edge of technology, so they don't fully understand the technology.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's up to legislators to, to catch up to the technology, which
yeah.
is not always a great situation.
Mhm. But I highly suggest, if anyone hasn't yet, I highly suggest go look at some videos of Tesla autopilot, because it's kind of scary right now. I can't imagine turning that on and and thinking like, oh, this is great. I'm just gonna lean back and do nothing. Which, like, for the record, Tesla is not saying that you can do that. You in fact cannot.
Yeah.
You need to make
Yeah,
sure
no,
that you can.
you'll get alerts. Like
Yeah,
if the car senses that you're not paying attention,
yeah,
you will get alerts. So like if you
yeah,
try to sleep, for example, like the
yeah.
car would wake you up and say, "No, you need to actually be
Yeah,
focused
and
here."
I think like you have to touch. I think you have to have something on the like you have to have your hand on the wheel at least, or like there's sensors in the wheel too. There's
Yeah,
I don't
there's some
exactly
kind of
know how it works, but
sensors. I don't know exactly what it is,
yeah,
but yeah, that it is designed to keep you focused
mhm,
even if you're not the one doing the driving.
yeah. So it's cool that Apple is working with a firm to sort of start this this process. It'll be interesting to see, it'll probably be a while before we ever, officially hear about anything about the Apple Car, but it'll be interesting to kind of see exactly what that looks like and where Apple's kind of going with it. Are they going high end? Are they trying to do more of a mid end thing? Are they thinking, what form factors are going to be? Probably most likely a sedan, but who knows?
Yeah, and the rumors that we were hearing a couple months ago were saying that Apple was going to be doing like shared vehicles. So it wouldn't necessarily be something that a person would own. It would be, like there would be a fleet of them, and it
Right.
would be like basically an autonomous Uber sort of
Right.
idea, which is intriguing. Which also
Mhm.
means it's going to be too expensive for regular people to own.
Yeah, exactly. Which I mean, and Teslas are kind of already there. I know they have like that one sort of
Yeah,
cheap model,
yeah,
but it's still not really that cheap in terms of other
right,
vehicles out
right.
there. So it's still very much a hard product line to get into for yourself, and it probably will be for quite a while yet. But yeah, it's cool.
Yes.
It's cool to know that Apple's kind of working on putting autopilot into its vehicle, whatever that vehicle ends up being, the purpose of it. If it's a more consumer thing, or like we said, we have been hearing that it might be like more of a business to business sort of transaction. So
Yeah,
that'll
I
be
can't wait to
interesting.
see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see either. But that's our show. Our hour came up quick. I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in live, listening to us now, giving us comments, and kind of interacting with us. We always love to see that. It's great. Anyone who's listening in your podcatcher of choice, listening to us later, we love you. Thank you so much for listening to us. Yeah, and as always, a big thank you to Jim Metzendorf, our amazing audio editor, who always makes us sound so good. And until next week, we'll be seeing you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.